In early February 2025, trade tensions between the United States and Canada escalated after President Donald Trump imposed significant tariffs. Citing concerns over illegal immigration and the rising fentanyl crisis, Trump introduced a 25% tariff on all Canadian imports, with a 10% rate specifically on Canadian energy products. These tariffs were set to take effect on February 4, 2025. In response, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced countermeasures, including a 25% duty on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, also starting on February 4th. Trudeau further indicated plans to expand the tariffs to an additional $125 billion of U.S. products after a 21-day public consultation period. The affected goods included American beer, wine, bourbon, fruits, fruit juices, clothing, sports equipment, and household appliances. Following discussions between Trump and Trudeau, both sides agreed to delay the tariff implementation for 30 days. In return, Canada committed to bolstering its border security by appointing a fentanyl czar and collaborating with the U.S. to form a joint strike force to combat drug trafficking. While some of these measures had been previously announced, they garnered mixed reactions in Canada. Despite the temporary delay, concerns about the economic impact of the proposed tariffs persisted. Economists warned that the tariffs could lead to higher consumer prices, disrupt supply chains, and strain the long-standing trade relationship between the two nations. Negotiations were ongoing as both countries worked toward a more permanent resolution before the tariffs were reinstated. As the tariff threats loomed, Canada, particularly Alberta, began seeking strategies to diversify its oil and liquefied natural gas (LNG) exports beyond the traditional U.S. market. This initiative was driven by the potential for U.S. tariffs and a desire to tap into the growing energy demands of Japan and other nations in the Far East. This report explores Canada's diversification plans, the strategic importance of Japan, and the associated challenges and opportunities. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau convened an economic summit with business leaders, policy experts, and labor unions to discuss reducing Canada's economic dependence on the U.S. This initiative includes promoting internal trade and revisiting previously cancelled energy projects to facilitate international energy exports. Public sentiment has shifted significantly, with 90% of Canadians now supporting reduced reliance on the U.S., a marked increase from before the tariff threats. Suncor Energy CEO Rich Kruger expressed confidence that the company was well prepared for potential U.S. tariffs, as it retains 60 to 65% of its production within Canada, utilizing the Trans Mountain pipeline for shipping via the British Columbia coast. This provides a natural hedge compared to other Canadian oil producers who transport their crude oil to the U.S. Canada's reliance on the U.S. for oil and gas exports has long been a cornerstone of its energy trade strategy. In 2022, approximately 97% of Canada's crude oil exports were directed to the U.S., with Alberta contributing the majority of this supply. Similarly, a significant portion of Canada's natural gas exports, valued at $22.4 billion, went to the U.S. market. This over-reliance poses substantial economic risks, especially amid escalating trade tensions. The U.S. has recently signaled potential tariffs on Canadian energy products, raising concerns about the future stability of this trade relationship. Emerging trade challenges highlight the urgency for Canada to diversify its energy export markets beyond the U.S. Geopolitically, diversifying export destinations enhances Canada's energy security and reduces vulnerability to policy shifts in any single country. Asia, particularly Japan, is experiencing a surge in energy consumption. In 2023, Japan imported approximately 66 million tons of LNG, making it the world's second-largest LNG importer after China. While domestic LNG demand has recently declined due to increased use of nuclear and renewable energy, future power demand may rise, driven by data center growth. If renewable energy and alternative energy strategies like hydrogen and ammonia don't expand significantly, Japan's LNG demand is expected to increase. Canada's geographic proximity to Asia's west coast positions it advantageously to meet this growing demand, especially as Japan seeks to diversify its energy sources. Alberta's Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schultz, has been active in fostering energy ties with Japan. During a recent visit to Tokyo, she engaged with key stakeholders such as JERA, Japan's largest LNG buyer, and toured its Futu thermal power station and LNG intake facility. Minister Schultz also met with representatives from the Japan Gas Association and JOGMEC, Japan Oil, Gas and Metals National Corporation, to discuss potential partnerships and investment opportunities in Alberta's energy sector. Canada has several competitive advantages as an LNG supplier to Japan. First, its shorter shipping routes, about 4,229 nautical miles from Vancouver to Tokyo, significantly reduce transportation time and costs compared to U.S. shipments, which must transit the Panama Canal. Additionally, Canada's political stability and commitment to environmental standards make it a reliable supplier. Canadian LNG is approximately 40% less carbon-intensive than LNG from the U.S. Gulf Coast, aligning with global emissions reduction efforts. Existing partnerships, such as LNG Canada and Kitimat, British Columbia, highlight the strong energy ties between the two countries. The LNG Canada project, nearing completion, aims to begin exports by mid-2025, with Phase 1 expected to produce 14 million tons of LNG per year. Notably, Japanese company Mitsubishi holds a 15% stake in the project, underscoring the robust energy collaboration between Canada and Japan. In line with its strategy of diversifying LNG exports, Canada is heavily investing in new infrastructure, particularly in British Columbia. These large-scale projects will significantly enhance Canada's capacity to supply Asian markets, including Japan and other Far East nations, positioning Canada as a leading energy supplier to the region. This major energy project, estimated to cost $40 billion, is a joint venture involving key industry players such as Shell, Petronas, Mitsubishi Corporation, and Kogas. The facility, once operational, will process and export LNG sourced from the Montney Formation near Dawson Creek, BC. The development is planned in 2 phases. Phase 1 is set to produce 14 million tons per year of LNG, with a potential expansion in Phase 2 to increase capacity. The project's strategic location in Kitimat was chosen for its industrial zoning, year-round ice-free deep-water port, and robust infrastructure, all of which facilitate LNG shipping to Asian markets. Construction of Phase 1 is over 95% complete, with the facility on track to ship its first LNG cargo by mid-2025. This milestone marks a significant step in Canada's goal to become a key LNG exporter. Located in Squamish, British Columbia, the Woodfibre LNG project is a smaller-scale export facility under development at a former pulp mill site. This initiative prioritizes electric drive technology to minimize greenhouse gas emissions in alignment with Canada's clean energy objectives. The project, with a projected capacity of 2.1 million tons per year, is set to commence operations by 2027. A standout feature of Woodfibre LNG is its collaboration with Indigenous communities, particularly the Squamish Nation, which has been actively involved in the project's development. This partnership ensures environmental and cultural considerations are embedded into the facility's operations, fostering strong Indigenous relationships and enhancing the project's social license to operate. Cedar LNG is a unique Indigenous-led project based in Kitimat, British Columbia. Developed by the Haisla Nation in collaboration with the private sector, it aims to establish a 3 million tons per year LNG export facility. The project is designed to leverage existing energy infrastructure while providing long-term economic benefits to the Haisla Nation. Expected to be one of North America's lowest-emission LNG facilities, Cedar LNG will incorporate innovative electrification technology to reduce its environmental impact. The project is strategically located near the LNG Canada site, creating potential synergies in transportation and infrastructure. With all approvals in place, Cedar LNG targets a 2028 startup. Located near Gals, British Columbia, the Kasi Limes LNG project, developed in partnership with the Nisga'a Nation, will use floating LNG technology for natural gas processing and export. With a projected production capacity of 12 million tons per year, it will become one of Canada's largest LNG developments. Kasi Limes LNG is designed to be among the lowest carbon-emitting LNG facilities globally, thanks to its energy-efficient processing and access to hydroelectric power sources. The project is expected to be operational between 2027 and 2030. These LNG projects collectively represent a pivotal shift in Canada's energy export strategy. By 2029, Canada's LNG production capacity could reach approximately 31 million tons per year, with potential for further expansion. Their strategic locations along Canada's west coast provide a competitive advantage by offering shorter shipping times and lower transportation costs compared to U.S. Gulf Coast exporters. Incorporating Indigenous partnerships, low-emission technologies, and integration with existing infrastructure, these projects reflect Canada's commitment to responsible resource development. As global LNG demand increases, particularly in Asia, these initiatives will play a crucial role in establishing Canada as a reliable and sustainable energy supplier. As of 2023, Japan remains Canada's fourth-largest trading partner, with bilateral merchandise trade valued at approximately 36.5 billion Canadian dollars. Canada's exports to Japan amounted to 15.8 billion Canadian dollars, reinforcing the significance of these LNG projects in meeting growing global energy demand. In 2021, Imports from Japan were valued at 20.7 billion Canadian dollars. The trade between the two countries is governed by agreements like the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, which has significantly reduced trade barriers and improved market access. Despite Japan importing more natural resources and agricultural products from Canada, the trade balance remains stable, as Canada's demand for Japanese manufactured goods, especially vehicles and machinery, is strong. Both nations continue to explore new opportunities, particularly in the energy sector, where Japan's growing reliance on liquefied natural gas aligns with Canada's increased capacity to export it. Canada plays a vital role in supplying Japan with essential raw materials, energy products, and agricultural commodities. Among the most significant exports are mineral fuels and oils, including liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, coal, and liquefied natural gas, LNG. Japan, as a major consumer of Canadian propane and butane, depends on these fuels for residential heating and industrial applications. Metallurgical coal, a key ingredient in steel production, is another critical export from Canada to Japan. Canada's agricultural sector also holds a prominent position in this trade, with Canada being the world's largest exporter of canola. Japan is one of its most important buyers, with canola seed and oil being in high demand for food and biofuel industries. In addition to canola, Canada exports wheat, soybeans, pork, and beef, all essential for Japan's food security. Canadian agricultural products are known for their high quality and strict safety standards, which have earned them a strong reputation in the Japanese market. Canada also exports minerals like copper, nickel, and iron ore, which are indispensable for Japan's high-tech manufacturing sectors, such as electronics and automotive production. Additionally, pharmaceutical and forest products contribute significantly to Canada's exports. While Canada is a major supplier of raw materials, Japan excels in exporting high-value manufactured goods. One of the largest categories of Japanese exports to Canada is automobiles and automotive parts. Japanese automakers like Toyota, Honda, and Nissan maintain a strong presence in the Canadian market, exporting vehicles and producing cars within the country. Industrial machinery, electronics, and high-tech medical devices are also substantial exports from Japan to Canada. Canada relies on Japanese technology for manufacturing, construction, and scientific research. The demand for Japanese consumer electronics, including semiconductors and optical devices, remains strong across various industries due to their high quality and reliability. Diplomatic relations between Canada and Japan date back to the early 20th century. Both countries sought to expand their international trade networks, with the trade in timber, fish, and manufactured goods helping lay the foundation for their economic relationship. During this period, Japanese immigration to Canada also contributed to the country's cultural diversity. However, the relationship faced challenges during World War II, when Canada was part of the Allied forces in direct conflict with Japan. A painful chapter of this period was the internment of Japanese Canadians, resulting in the forced relocation and confiscation of property for thousands of people based on national security concerns. This legacy has influenced efforts toward reconciliation, and Canada has formally apologized for these wartime injustices, offering compensation programs from the late 1980s onward. After World War II, both countries worked to rebuild trust and establish new grounds for cooperation. Japan embarked on economic reconstruction, setting the stage for a renewed partnership focused on mutual growth. Canadian exports in natural resources and energy benefited from Japan's post-war technological and industrial advancements. Bilateral trade has steadily increased over the decades. In 2021, total merchandise trade reached approximately CAD 19.1 billion, with Canadian exports to Japan totaling around CAD 8.1 billion, and imports from Japan about CAD 11 billion. Japanese direct investment in Canada reached CAD 1.4 billion in 2021, highlighting growing confidence in the Canadian market. Meanwhile, Canadian investment in Japan stood at approximately CAD 0.8 billion. Cultural ties have paralleled economic growth. Over 50,000 Canadians of Japanese descent contribute to the rich cultural exchange between the two nations. In 2019, more than 300,000 Canadians visited Japan, driven by cultural festivals, academic exchanges, and business initiatives. In recent years, the relationship has continued to grow, with trade volumes increasing by 3 to 5% annually. By 2022, the bilateral trade volume was estimated at around CAD 20 billion. Japanese companies are prominent in Canada's automotive, energy, and technology sectors, while Canada remains a key supplier of natural resources and agricultural products to Japan. Both countries are also collaborating in areas such as clean energy, biotechnology, and information technology. These joint projects not only drive economic growth, but also help address global challenges like climate change and cybersecurity. Canada and Japan often collaborate in multilateral organizations like the United Nations, the G7, and APEC. Their shared commitment to democracy, human rights, and sustainable development strengthens their partnership. High-level visits and regular dialogues continue to help address emerging global challenges, from supply chain resilience to regional security. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your support. If you found this content insightful, please consider liking and subscribing to stay connected. Feel free to explore more of our videos on the channel.